Hello, my friends. Today we're going to talk about the life of a 2x2 minister. We're going to start from zero, how they are created, and then what it's like for them in their ministry. There may be some cases of 2x2 ministers that don't fit exactly what we're going to describe here, but we're trying to go for the general case. So how does it start? They clearly are 2x2 ministers do not come out of the uterus ready to go as 2x2 ministers. They start out like every other 2x2 child or child raised in a 2x2 home. You very, very, very rarely meet anyone who's a 2x2 minister that was not raised in a 2x2 home. They exist, but they are not the norm. And if they do exist, generally, if you get into their background, they are people who came from highly dysfunctional childhoods and got sucked in by the 2x2 love bomb, and because they have no other options in their lives, they become 2x2 ministers. So, but as we said, vast majority of 2x2 ministers come from 2x2 homes. How does this work? Well, they start out like every other 2x2 kid. They're being highly indoctrinated in the 2x2 system. They start at age 9 plus or minus a few years, they will profess. They will then begin the indoctrination program of parroting these certain phrase words and key jargon that the 2x2s use in their Wednesday and Sunday meetings. So remember, this kid is going to be regurgitating approximately 30 seconds of prayer and about 120 seconds of testimony in each of those two meetings. And as they get older, their testimony or prayer may become longer in duration, and the sophistication, and I use that word very loosely, of the content of their speeches will increase to include more and more of key jargon and phraseology the 2x2s use. So they become highly indoctrinated in the 2x2, say, groupthink. Okay, and they, of course, are all picking up all kinds of cultural, 2x2 cultural behavior and dress, right? They become inculcated in it. Now, because they're in a 2x2 home and they're going to these meetings, they're going to be exposed to all kinds of propaganda from the existing 2x2 ministers about taking the choice to become a 2x2 minister, or the calling, so to speak. At almost at least every special meeting, every convention, and many of the gospel meetings, the 2x2 ministers will talk about how the harvest is plenty and the laborers are few, meaning that there's not enough 2x2 ministers to go around for all the great even converts that there are, potential converts there are. Okay, now clearly, like, look, there's hardly any converts. There's and 2x2 ministers, if they convert one person in their entire life, that's a great success story. They don't convert, they're not converting. So the harvest is basically zero. But the message to the kids is, we need you, you must join us and become a minister. Now, it's not just from the platform this propaganda comes, it also comes from the hymns. So in the hymns that are sung in the meetings, at the Wednesday and Sunday meetings and the gospel meetings and so forth, there are particular phrases in those hymns that are directly about trying to convince people that they should become ministers. In particular, if you look at hymn number from the 2x2s have a hymn book, by the way, it's called Hymns Old and New. Hymns number 402, 403, 406, 407, and 408. These are almost explicit asks or coercions to try to get people to become 2x2 ministers. The other thing is, the parents of the 2x2 kids are going to be basically either not, if overtly or covertly, have told these kids that the most important thing you can do with your life is to become a 2x2 minister. There's nothing more important. So if you're, by the time you're a mid-teen as a 2x2 child, and you're thinking what to do with your life, what could you do? Well, 2x2 minister is probably on the top of the list. Okay, it's on the top of the list. Now you toss in other factor is that many 2x2s, their children did not go to college. Right? I mean, higher learning is not particularly encouraged. And if it is encouraged, it will be only in the form of technical training. Okay. Very, very few 2x2 children would go to school to learn English literature, philosophy, whatever, anything like that. It's always technical training, obviously, so you can earn money, and that's it, or not go at all, right? So if you're a 2x2 kid and you don't have the opportunity to go to college either because it wasn't promoted in your home or you don't have money or whatever, you could become a 2x2 minister and still get this sort of high profile, high status job, right? As compared to, say, becoming a doctor, right? My point is, in the homes of 2x2s, someone who's a 2x2 minister is considered much more high status than someone who's a doctor. Now, you may think that's odd since 2x2 ministers have no training whatsoever compared to a doctor that may have, 7 to 10 years of training, but that's the way it is. And the further thing is, there are some 2x2 children who have same-sex attraction issues, right? So they've obviously, in 2x2s, homosexuality is verboten. It's considered abomination. So how do you deal with that if those are you have that as a part of your psychology as a child or a teenager rather? You're going to say, well, if I go into the ministry, 2x2 ministry, God will take this away from me. He'll take this this issue of this homosexuality urges I have, will take it away, right? And so that's a good reason why they would go in, or they think they should go in anyways. And this is why in the 2x2 ministry as a whole, we have very credible estimates that upwards of 30% of the 2x2 ministers are homosexual, right? Compared to an overall population that has a homosexuality rate of 2%. That's significant that there's something going on there. So we have these different sort of supply lines of potential 2x2 ministers, right? Coming from either it's kids who want a high status position, it's kids who have a same-sex attraction issue, it's kids who feel like this is a good career for them, without having to, the career offer being a plumber or a 2x2 minister, right? Well, I'm going to be the minister, right? It's better, and so forth. I don't get my hands dirty, that kind of stuff. There's also a large number of particularly with the female ministers, the teenagers, they are much more emotionally driven about their decision choice, and they think that being a 2x2 minister is they're going to be shepherding the flock and all this kind of stuff, right? And so they get sucked in on essentially their motherly compassion emotions, right? Every 2x2 parent is elated the day that their child tells them they want to become a 2x2 minister. Elated. There is probably, that's the greatest day of their lives to hear that from their children. And of course, the children have covertly picked this up, and that's part of the reason why they make those choices. Now, it's also a high status thing, right? So if you've been progressing through a 2x2 system, you're professing, then you got baptized, probably 16 years old when a kid gets baptized, and then you may be playing the piano at the gospel meetings and so forth. Your parents may be an elder, or your parents may own a convention ground. The next step, of course, is become a minister, right? Your parents think like that, and you will also be thinking like that. So the child or the teenager, usually they're around 18 to 22 years old when they decide in a long way to become a minister. They've probably been thinking about it for quite a while, and they'll say, well, I had the calling to be a minister, and I fought with it. I didn't want to do it, but God's saying, I got it. Of course, it's not a calling in a sense that it's actually God talking to them. It's their own psychology that's been imprinted into them over these number of years they've been in their childhood, but they don't understand that. And of course, they're fighting with it because the big issue about doing a 2x2 ministry that's hard for them to deal with is a celibacy issue, right? So when you're a teen, thinking about being celibate is really a no go, right? Unless, of course, you're unable to get a partner, right? In an opposite sex partner. If you're having a lot of trouble, it's better for you to go be a minister than to be a spinster, right? So that for women, that's actually a major thing. Now, I've mentioned in other videos how 2x2 children, their ability to get non-2x2 potential mates is very limited because of the social conditioning that's happened to them. So it there may be no supply of 2x2 mates for them to choose from, and so that going into the ministry may be, their only choice to avoid being a spinster. Again, there's so many factors in here when you dig into it that each case might be slightly different than the other, um, but in it's all cases, it's a case of coercion of these children or teens, as you might say. So they go to when they decide they're going to do it, they go to a minister in their region. Usually, it's during convention because that's kind of when the more senior ministers are there, like overseers or what they call head workers, and they will go approach them and say, I'd like to offer for the work. So now, in most cases, they'll be said, "Oh, you want to offer for the work? Yes, that's great. We know that we know your parents, and the workers in your region have known you for a long time, and you have not done anything bad, right? You have no children out of wedlock, or you have always worn your hair up in a bun, or you've never had a beard if you're a male, or whatever it is. You've never, you've never drank alcohol. Right? You're a pure virgin, right? In the most full sense of the word." And we've noticed your testimonies have always had all the key phrases in it and so forth, right? So this is the kind of thing they're looking for. Now, if you have some sort of issue in your background, these issues I'm talking about are not serious things. They're just trivial things. Like, for example, your family members, maybe someone in your family that the 2x2 ministers have a problem with. Well, let's say, for example, you come from a home where your father's not a member and your mother is a member, and well, they will consider you to be a high risk person in terms of becoming a minister, and they will probably tell you to just cool it for a while. They'll say, why don't you go and pray it? We'll pray about it. You pray about it, and come back in a couple of years. Okay, so here's the thing: there's many people who are 2x2s. When you start talking to them, let's say they're 30, 40, 50 years old, and you go and talk to them about what was life like for you between the ages of 18 and 24 or something. And many of them will say, well, I offered for the work, but I was turned down, right? I was turned down. Now, usually it's because of something like this. Well, they get this, take a break, cool your heels for a bit and come and check in a year or two. Well, in the meantime, they get a job, right? Because that's another thing. They would rather become a minister than get an actual job. So now they get turned down or put on wait list. They go and get a job. And once they get a job and start working, they realize, oh, this is pretty good having a job. I'm not interested in this ministry stuff. So that's another issue. So let's say they actually say, yes, you can be a minister, get on board. They don't do any checks on you at all of your psychology in a real sense. That nothing. They don't train you. They don't send you to seminary. They don't send you to Bible college. There's no training. They just say, well, next worker season, which would probably start in the autumn, we're going to assign you with another minister, and they're going to basically be your mentor. Okay, so and you're going to go and do gospel meetings. You're supposed to also do evangelization, but of course they don't do any evangelization, nothing at all. They just do these gospel meetings. Who only people in the gospel meetings are other 2x2s, so it's completely a waste of time from an evangelization perspective. But in terms of training this young minister, it's a good situation because it gives them a chance to pick up on more and more of the phraseology and the jargon and become more indoctrinated in the 2x2 system. Now, they're not actually learning anything about Christianity, really about the Bible at all. And you can do this because if you want to get into some of these forums with current 2x2 workers and see the depth of their Christianity knowledge or Bible knowledge, I mean, it's pathetic. They know nothing, very, very little. Most Christians who are ex 2x2s know more about the Bible than the existing 2x2 ministers. That's evident from any interactions in social media you may observe. Okay, so really it's just about indoctrination, learning the keywords and learning how to be a better salesman of the 2x2 system, right? This is the key thing. So now, of course, when they join, they have to, if they have any assets, anything, maybe they had a car, maybe they had whatever, something, maybe they got an inheritance from somebody, they have to take it, sell it, whatever it is, take the money and give the money to the 2x2 overseer in that region. So now they have no assets, they have nothing to fall back on, right? If they don't like the 2x2 ministry, well, too bad. It's very difficult to get out, right? It's a one-way door, so to speak. But they're giving free housing, right? So they can go anywhere, wherever there's 2x2s in the world, and they can immediately get a place to sleep for the night and food, free food from the homeowner. And in many cases, they can also give them transportation, like a car. So it's essentially basically having like an Airbnb account that has no cost. You don't have to pay anything. And by the way, these homeowners will also give you cash for spending cash. So all you do is go visit people, stay in their homes, and get money from them, right? And have to talk to them basically as a guest. So you talk about anything about Christianity? No, nothing. It's just chit chat about what other 2x2s are up to over there, or how the convention grounds are looking over here. It's just totally trivial things. But you are essentially like a freeloader. And what do you think what do you think the economic benefits of this are? Well, I mean, many times they're staying in really nice homes. I mean, the 2x2 ministers figure it out, which of the 2x2s have beautiful homes, big bedrooms, big bathrooms, you know, estates with large, lots of activities to do on the property, maybe a swimming pool, tennis courts, or whatever. Who knows? And that's where they try to really spend as much time as possible. So I could say you could probably, on average, at $250 a night, plus the food, we're probably working in over $100 a day. Sorry, 300 to $350 a day of total cost these 2x2s are acquiring, and this is an undeclared income, really. They don't obviously they don't file tax returns, but if they did, they should put it's on there. It's undeclared income. But anyways, it's a lot of money, right? In a year, right? So I mean, it's more than most people would get in their average yearly income. And remember, you can swap it up. You can go to nice houses or so forth. And of course, there's also usually teenagers around that these 2x2 managers could then have clandestine sexual escapades with. That's really common, actually, and also with the adult congregants, right? There's numerous cases of these 2x2s ministers having sex with adults, right? The homeowner's wife or the homeowner himself or so forth. I mean, it's a really sad situation, but that's how things are done. So this is kind of how you get into the ministry. Then as you're in there for a year or 2, 3, 5 years, whatever, the overseers or head workers or so forth, they are always trying to check you out to see what kind of worker you are. Are you the idealistic one, or are you a corruptible one? Now, most of these workers are actually idealistic. They actually believe the nonsense they've been told. But there are a small subset of them who are corruptible. And the way that the overseers figure it out is by testing them. They give them some little task to do, which is a sort of uncomfortable task. Go tell such and such a parishioner that their spouse can no longer participate because they're spotted in town, wearing pants. Something like that. Now, if this 2x2 minister gives some, resistance to that, this is probably an idealistic minister. But if they don't, they go along with it, it's clearly like an awful thing to be doing and it's wrong. They're going to wear it, right? And that's something that could be used against them. So the next time the overseer comes, I'd like you to go do something a little bit more, let's say, uncomfortable. They'll go along with it. And pretty soon they're doing even more and more uncomfortable things like money laundering and so forth. And they just move them along this, say, corruption spectrum until they're highly corrupt. And the overseers get control of these people primarily through the use of sexualized blackmail, right? They find out that so-and-so, a minister, has been having sex with either a congregant or a child, and they use it as blackmail to control them. The retention rate on ministers is actually pretty pathetic. I think I've seen in some states in the U.S. the retention rate. So, like, let's say there was 28 ministers over a 10-year period, new ministers, and something like 2 stayed on. The rest inevitably all retired, fired, or left, or whatever, quit. Because if you're a sensible person, you'll figure out pretty fast that this ministry is not God's angels, that it's highly corrupt, that it's highly abusive, and it's also that you don't actually learn anything about the Bible, right? So it's as you look at ministers who are old in the system, these are usually either the most corrupted, the most brainwashed, and so forth. And it's very, very sad. So it's important, if you want to help 2x2 ministers, is to try to help the young ones get out, because if the longer they're in there, the worse it is for them.